Hi, I'm Philip with G6 Technology Services. Today we have a 15-inch MacBook Pro unibody, early 2011, and we're going to be changing the battery and the trackpad. The battery swelled up and pushed through the trackpad and cracked it. So we're going to be replacing the cracked trackpad and also the expanded battery. So let's get started. Okay, so here's our 15-inch MacBook Pro. And we can see we have our trackpad that got pushed up by the battery and it's shattered. So we'll just get a close-up of that real quick. So as you can see, we have some shattering of the glass, and then it's also lifted up quite a bit on the side. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll need to remove the bottom case. And we'll be careful. I actually think, just to avoid scratching anything, I'm going to put a cloth over this, so we don't scratch our display. Okay. And we'll get our screwdriver. We have our 00 Phillips screwdriver. And we'll get a little container to put our screws in. Well, remember when we're putting this back together that these 3 screws on the right are the longer of the 2 different sizes. Okay, move our bottom cover off. Normally this case is held on by a couple of clips, but since this battery has swollen up, it pushed the case away from those clips. So that's something to look out for. If you don't have a swollen battery and you're just going to be changing the trackpad, then there are going to be 2 clips that are holding the case down. And so that's why we want to take all the screws out first, because when you pull the case and it releases from those 2 clips, it tends to fling the screws out. So we'll just set this off to the side. And then we'll begin by removing our battery. So the first thing we'll want to do is to disconnect our battery connector, and that'll just pull straight up. So you can use a plastic pry tool, or if you have long enough fingernails, you can just do that. So that's what I'm going to do here. So that just pries up like that. So the next thing that we'll need to do is get our Y-shaped screwdriver. And we have a Y1 screwdriver here. It's kind of a little triangle on the tip. And we'll remove our battery retaining screws. There's 3 of them. So we'll start with this one. And then we'll just set these off to the side. And I'm just going to put them there in the order that they came out. Okay, part of the plastic tab broke off, so we'll just throw that away. That's another important thing when you're taking these batteries out. Make sure to remove all of the plastic debris, because it'll rattle around or it can get stuck in the fans. And then the last one is underneath the sticker, so just peel that back a little bit. Okay, and we have our 3rd screw out. And then we can carefully remove our battery. Okay, and yeah, we can see that this is not a very happy battery. It's puffing up in many places. So we'll get a closer angle on that. So here we can see a closer angle on this battery. So that's a very unhappy battery. Okay, now that we have our battery out, we can start disassembling the computer further. So before we do that, I'll just show you some of the parts that we have. So our replacement trackpad from iFixit, and we'll just go ahead and zoom in on that part number. And then we've got our iFixit battery. So we've got our nice new battery and our trackpad. So we'll go ahead and put these off to the side for now. We'll have to do a little bit of disassembly before we can get to these. And then to help us, we've also got our iFixit manual, which if you have the ability to be more environmentally friendly and view this on a tablet or computer screen, that would be better, but in this case it's more convenient to have it printed out. So this is just a quick guide to help remind me where some of the screws go and make sure we reconnect all of our cables, because we're going to have to remove the main logic board, and so when we do that all the connectors have to come off, and it's very easy to forget to put one back. If it gets stuck underneath something, you don't see it. So even if you're familiar with these and know what you're doing, it's a good idea just to follow along with the manual just to make sure everything gets reconnected. It just saves some headache from having to open it back up afterwards if you find out something doesn't work. Okay, so we've already removed our battery. So next thing, we have to take our fans out. So these are going to be T6 Torx. So we'll go ahead and get that driver out. There we go. And these fans, looks like there's 2 screws. Actually, there was some dust here. There's another screw right here. So a total of 3 screws. So we'll go ahead and just zoom in on that real quick so you can see it better. Okay, so here's our fan. So we're going to have to remove this screw, and that screw, and then this is our connector that's going to have to come off. Okay, and there are 2 different sized screws here. So what I like to do is just leave the screw in the hole, so that way when we remove the fan, the screws will stay in the correct place. So to get this connector out, we'll just use our plastic spudger, and you just put the spudger right underneath, and we'll just lift up, and it just pops right out. And then we'll just lift up our fan, and it just comes right out, just like this. So then we'll just put this off to the side. Okay, now it wants us to take out the right fan, so we'll just do the same thing. We just have 3 of these T6 screws to come out. And I just like to, again, just leave it in the hole so we know where it goes. And then we'll use our spudger to lift up this connector. So we just get underneath the wire and just lift up on it. Okay, that comes right up. got our fan out of here now. This does look pretty dusty, so this might be a good time to go ahead and blow some of the dust out of here. So I think we'll take a second and do that. Okay, now that we have some of the dust out of our laptop here, we're going to start disconnecting some of the connectors on the motherboard so we can pull it out of the computer. So the first one that it has us doing in this manual is our camera cable. So we'll go ahead and disconnect that. So this one pulls just straight back out. So don't lift up on it because you could pull the connector out of the board, or you could pull the connector off the end of the cable. So these are kind of fragile, so what I like to do to make it a little bit easier and less likely to damage it is to just use the pointy end of our plastic spudger to just wiggle each side of the connector out. So we'll just zoom in on that so you can see how it works. Okay, so this is our connector. So we're just going to use the pointy end of our spudger just to wiggle each end of this cable out. Okay, and we can see now our connector is disconnected. So now we'll move on, and we're just pretty much going to be going down the line here. And the next one that we have, this ribbon cable for the airport and Bluetooth, will just lift straight up. So we'll just use the flat end of our spudger and just wiggle that up. It just separates like that. And then we have our optical drive connector, which should be the exact same kind of connector. So we'll just lift that up. And then we have right here our hard drive cable. So that's the same type. We'll just pry that up, just lift straight up. And then we have our speaker connector right here. So with this one out of the way, this comes off the same way as the fan connectors. It just lifts up off the board. So we'll just do that. There we go. That connector is up and out of there. So that's all the connectors on the left side of the motherboard. So now that we've gotten that taken care of, we'll just move around to the bottom edge. We have this shield that needs to come off. That's protecting the keyboard and trackpad connectors. So we'll go ahead and do that. So it's going to be a Phillips. So we'll try our 00. And we'll just lift that screw up and put it off to the side here. Okay, we have our shield lifted up. I'll just put this other screw back in the hole, and then we'll just set this whole assembly off to the side. Okay, and now we can use, again, the flat end of our spudger to lift the trackpad connector, which is right here. So that's going to be the same type that we saw earlier, where it just lifts straight up. And it disconnects like that. So next we'll be lifting up our keyboard cable, so we'll go ahead and get zoomed in on that so we can see how that's going to work. Okay, so our keyboard connector, we'll just pull this little tab down out of the way and just hold it there. So the way that this releases, there's a bar that comes up, and you just have to pry this bar up like that. So now that this bar has been released, we can use this tab to just pull this connector out of the socket. And then we can move over to our battery level indicator connector, and this will just lift up just like that. And now we can move up to our display data cable, and we're going to do a similar thing where we have this black tab. We'll just pull the black tab until the metal retainer is released, so that should open backwards. And then we'll just pull on this black tab straight back, not up. And it'll release this display data cable. So now we have that released. And now we just have one final cable to remove, and that's right here below the left fan. And that's another one of these ZIF connectors where it just has the bar that gets lifted up and then you just pull the ribbon cable out. So we'll just go ahead and do the same thing. You can see that tiny little flap that we just lifted up. And then this cable we'll just pull right out. Now that our cable's been released, that is our final connection on the motherboard that we have to remove. So now what we're going to have to do is remove all of the screws that are holding the logic board to the case, and then lift up our logic board. So with our T6 Torx driver, we'll have to remove 7 screws that are holding the logic board down. So we'll just start at the top, I guess. So the first one is right here. And our final logic board screw right here to the right of this heatsink. And then we also have to remove 2 screws holding our MagSafe jack onto the frame. So now we should be able to lift up our logic board. And this process sometimes goes smoothly, sometimes it takes a little while, because you do have to make sure all of the little connectors and tabs are not caught. Okay, looks like we might have had a little bit of adhesive. Something that was under here, part of the speaker was getting stuck. I didn't want to lift up all the way, but here's our logic board, so we'll just set that off to the side. So now that we have our logic board out, we can access our trackpad cable, which is right here. So that's free. So now we'll just have to remove the 4 screws that are holding it in. It's the silver outer ones, not the black inner ones. And these do like to fling across the room, so just be careful when you take them out that they don't go flying. Like that. And trust me, if they end up on the floor, you'll never find them again. So since we do have all of the screws, we didn't order the iFixit kit that comes with them. There is another kit that you can order that comes with a lot of this mounting hardware if you're missing any of it. we'll just remove this trackpad. And there we go, we've got our shattered trackpad removed from our computer. So now we'll just try and straighten up these brackets. These are partly what gives some of the spring to the trackpad, so if they're bent too far down, then the trackpad won't feel right. So we'll test fit it and see if these are too far damaged to reuse. Hopefully they're still good, otherwise we'll have to order some of the mounting hardware. So we'll get our new trackpad opened up. Okay, and here's our nice shiny new trackpad. So we'll go ahead and just put this in the same way that we removed the old one. So we'll put our cable through the little slot. And then these tabs go on the bottom first. And then we just lift it up. And then we try to put our screws back into these brackets, which can sometimes be a challenge by itself. Okay, we got one. So what's recommended is don't tighten it down all the way, because we'll want to adjust it a little bit to make sure that there's an even margin on all four sides. Okay, so we have our screws back in. So it's at this point, with it slightly loose, that we want to make sure that our margins are even. And that everything clicks. It doesn't really want to click that well on this side, so we'll just make sure those screws end up getting tightened the rest of the way. Also, looks like this side needs to go up a little bit, so we'll just make those adjustments. And another important note, when you're adjusting these screws, you do want to support it on the other side with your hand, because otherwise, if you just push on this, it'll stretch these brackets down too far and it'll lose their springiness. And we don't want that, because then it won't click right. Okay, so you should be able to feel it moving around if they're loose enough. So what I like to do is push it all the way this way, and then just pull it forward just a little bit, and then just flip it around, and just check to make sure it looks like it's lined up. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now we'll try to tighten these without shifting it any further. Okay. Now we'll just want to test click again. And you should be able to feel it clicking from all points. If it doesn't feel like the click is very strong, the set screw can be adjusted right here. So we'll go ahead and just do that. while we have it opened here. And it's very important not to loosen this all the way, because if this comes all the way out, it's hard to get it back in, and a lot of times it ends up getting cross-threaded and it completely seizes up, or it won't go in the rest of the way, and there's not really any way to fix that. You have to replace this entire upper case. So just try not to remove this all the way, but we'll just loosen it a little bit, and we'll just test click it and see what happens. And we'll try tightening it and see if one way or the other makes it better. So tightening didn't help. Loosening, yeah, that feels a lot better. So very clicky now, so I'm happy with that. So we'll push our cable back down. I think there was some glue down here. No, I guess not. So that's fine how it is now. So we can begin following our guide in reverse to reassemble everything. We don't need this cloth anymore. We got our broken trackpad out of there, so we'll just close our lid the rest of the way. So we'll put our logic board back in. That was the last thing that we removed, so it'll be the first thing that goes back. And we do have this MagSafe board to worry about also, so when we reinsert our logic board, we need to make sure that this MagSafe board is lined up first, because it sits under the logic board. And this is all sometimes a little bit tricky to get it lined back up. And it's also, at this point, we need to make sure that all of our connectors come out and they're not going to be stuck underneath the board. So it looks like everything's pretty well lined up here. Okay. And that looks like we have all of our connectors accounted for. So we can start reinserting our screws. So I'll start with our MagSafe board screws. I don't know if I showed you this, but we have everything laid out in a nice orderly fashion. Yeah, you can see that. So we've got our fans here, left fan, right fan, our bottom case screws, logic board screws, the shield that goes over the keyboard and trackpad connector, our battery screws, and our MagSafe screws. So I like to just lay everything out neatly in order so we can tell more easily where it goes when we put it back in. So we'll start with our MagSafe board screws. And we'll want to just start it, but don't tighten it all the way yet, because we'll want to get the other one in first and make sure that it's properly aligned before we tighten them both down all the way. Okay, so that looks like it's in there. So we'll go ahead and tighten these the rest of the way. Okay, and we'll start putting our logic board screws back in. Alright, now that we have all of our logic board screws tightened back up, we can start reconnecting. Our cables. So the last one that it had us take out was this backlight cable. So we'll go ahead and put that back in. And it's just going to slide back into this connector. And then we just push the bar back down. So we'll zoom in on that so we can see. So how this was. Be like that. So to reconnect this connector, we just push the end of it into our connector until it feels like it's in there a decent amount, and then we just flip this bar down, and now that's securely attached. So the next one that we'll do, so we'll go in order from the manual. So we'll actually go over to the other side of the board. And do the display data cable. So for this one, it just slides in. And sometimes it's helpful to give it a little poke from the rear to make sure it's fully seated, and then we can just push this bar down and it should lock into place just like that. So it looks like it is fully seated now. So now it has us do this battery indicator connector, which is right here. So that just presses straight down. So that's on there now. And then my favorite one, the keyboard connector. So we'll see how long this takes to get back in here. It's usually a little bit of a pain. I'll go ahead and just zoom out on that a little bit. So for this one, we just need to get this ribbon. Oh, there it goes. Wow, that's the easiest it's ever gone in there. We just need to get that ribbon underneath, and then we just need to push our bar back down. There we go. So that's connected. And now we can make our trackpad connection, which is right next to it. So that just pushes straight down like that. And now we can put our shield back over these two connectors. With our screw that ran away, we've gotten it back here. So we've got that shield back on now. Now we can go ahead and start reconnecting the connectors on our other side of the board. So all of these will just press down. So we have our speaker connector, so we just align it over the top of the connector and it just presses straight down. We have our hard drive cable, just presses straight down. Optical drive presses straight down. Wireless presses straight down. So the only one that's different is right here. That's going to be our camera cable. So we'll zoom in and show you how that goes back in. So what we want to do is just push it into the connector. Make sure that it's level. Okay, once it feels like it's starting to seat, Then we'll use the flat end of our spudger on these little metal wings and just push it a little bit from each side until it feels like it clicks into place. So that looks like it's all the way in now. Okay, and now it's time to put our fans back in. So we'll just drop that right back into position. And we've already got our screws still in it from when we took it out and left them in. So we can go ahead and tighten those. And then we just push down our fan connector. Just get it centered over the connector and just push it straight down. And we have our other fan. Go ahead and tighten that up. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and just zoom in and show you that last fan connector. So here we are. It's just disconnected right above it. So all we want to do is just line it up on the connector and you just push straight down. So I just did that with my finger the first time. So that's all there is to those. So now we can install our new battery, so I'll go get that. Okay, we have our nice fresh new battery. And these always come with a calibration card that just explains to the user you have to drain your battery below 10% and then charge uninterrupted to 100% to calibrate it. That helps the computer know how much time the battery will run. So if you have the time calculator by the clock at the top with the battery monitor, it says an hour remaining, 2 hours remaining. So this is how it can accurately determine that by calibrating it. So we'll just set that off the side and then I'll make sure the customer gets that when they come to pick the computer up. Okay, we'll get our new battery out. And then make sure not to touch this other side or poke it with anything sharp. These are exposed cells, and if you puncture that, it could burst into flames. So that is not desirable. So we'll remove the protective plastic and flip it over and remove the protective plastic on that side. And we'll just inspect our battery just to make sure everything looks like it's okay. And it does, so we'll go ahead and insert it. And it just presses down into place. And then we'll go ahead and get our Y1 screwdriver back out. And we'll reinsert our battery screws. Okay, everything looks good there. We'll go ahead and put our screwdriver away. Now we can put on our bottom case. So I'll go ahead and wipe this off, it's a little bit dirty. Okay, now that we have our dust out of here, we'll go ahead and just reconnect our battery connector. We always want to make sure that's the very last thing we do. So we'll go ahead and press that back in. And just do a quick visual inspection just to make sure everything is fully seated and we don't see any connectors without a cable. Everything looks good. All of our brackets feel like they're secure. So we'll go ahead and put our cover back on and then give it a little press to attach those connectors that hold it shut. So see, now it doesn't want to lift up because it has those two clips that hold it. So that was something that we didn't see when we took it apart because the battery pushed it out of those connectors, or out of those clips. So now we can go ahead and put our screws back in the bottom cover. So we'll want to remember that the 3 long screws will start in this top right corner and just go left. Okay. Now we have our bottom cover back on. We'll go ahead and run some diagnostics. So we'll wait for it to get into Startup Manager. I just want to see if it'll run on the battery without the charger plugged in. Yeah, it does. And it's got 2 lights that are not on, so I'm still not sure why we're not getting our charger turning orange, but we'll go ahead and just, oh, there we go. So it's working now. So we'll try our diagnostics again. Okay, it looks like we've passed all of our tests. Everything looks good. So this is ready to go. We'll go ahead and shut it down, and we'll just clean it up a little bit, and it's ready to return to the customer.